Just before we begin, I wanted to ask if you can see me and if you can see my presentation and if you hear what I say. Okay, thank you very much for your feedback. Okay, so welcome to the 16th episode of the DIH Talks. My name is Ivan, I'm support officer at the Luxembourg Digital Innovation Hub. And for today's topic, we have physical security in manufacturing facilities. Therefore, we are pleased to welcome our speakers from the Luxembourg House of Cybersecurity. Welcome Anita Ahul Rajakumar, cybersecurity specialist, as well as Omar Ramadan, also a cybersecurity specialist. Anita will shortly introduce us to the DIH related cybersecurity related services, and then we jump into the main topic with Omar. So just before we begin, there is a dedicated question tab beside the chat. Ask your question anytime and we will address them at the end of this session. So I think I can give the word to Anita. Welcome, Anita.
Thank you, Ivan. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining in. I see a lot of new names today. So I'll quickly go through the L-DIH services. So Luxembourg Digital Innovation Hub, we are part of the European Digital Innovation Hub, and we are the only center here in Luxembourg. The objective is to help organizations in the digitalization process. We have services across as awareness, tests, skills and training, technology testing. We also have awareness sessions on funding. Today, you're on one of our webinars, which we call DIH Talks. So our services are split into these categories: train, assess, fund, and test. So moving to the cybersecurity services, we have two services offered by Luxembourg House of Cybersecurity, especially the National Cybersecurity Competence Center. So the first service is light cybersecurity assessment. The second one is cybersecurity value pack. So light cybersecurity assessment is a quick online assessment consisting of 28 questions, which takes about 30 minutes to answer, which gives you an idea of where you stand in terms of information security or cybersecurity. It is specifically designed for manufacturing industries. The next one is Cyber Value Pack, which consists of awareness and training for both the team and the leadership. Then we have a cyber simulation, which is called Room 42, which is specifically for the teams, including the leadership. And we have the third one, which is called NC3 Testing Platform, where you can test your IoT firmware before deploying. So I will now hand over to my colleague Omar, who will talk about the physical security in manufacturing.
Hello everyone, and thank you for hosting me today, and thank you Anita for introducing me. So a quick introduction about myself. My name is Omar Ramadan. I'm a cybersecurity specialist working specifically in NC3, but I am as well the LHC because this is the big house that hosts us and our, let's say, neighbor or roommate in this house, which is Circle. So today we're going to talk about a very important topic, in my opinion, which is physical security. And since we're going to be talking in the theme of manufacturing industries, so we're going to be really specific regarding these terms. Now, one thing that people, when it goes to their mind when you talk about physical security and you say just security, people will assume a bouncer standing in front of a club or somebody who, you know, probably it's a stereotype. Somebody never studied, went to academy, and is just working in security because this is the only thing they can do. However, this landscape has evolved drastically. And there's many pillars, because in the end, a security mindset is a security mindset. It hosts everything. Might it be cyber, might it be physical, and even might it be psychological. A security mindset will work anywhere. And this is why we're going to be going in more depth into the physical security, and you will understand more and more. And it's going to be a bit like a Hollywood movie where people are going to be like, but this doesn't happen in real life. It does, unfortunately, happen. So to go in very quick things, we will just have 10 points to go through. As well, I would like to give more time for people to put some questions, because the manufacturing industry is quite big. You can go from something so simple as in creating straws to engine manufacturing for Boeings, or just train yards, the metal for the train yards. So, of course, this is a general overview for the physical security in manufacturing industries, of course. And this is why I would like to have more of your questions coming through, so I can as well answer more specifically to what you have. So first point, why does physical security matter, especially in the manufacturing industry? Physical security matters everywhere. You can start with your house and move all the way to work. So first of all, of course, you need to protect humans, people. These are your biggest asset. As well, if you work in manufacturing industry, for example, for cat litter, dog food, you need to protect your animals. So that's why another point would be people, asset, and production continuity. This whole thing needs to work properly. And people might assume that if you get hurt, there are so many repercussions that can happen. Might it be legal, financial, operational, even personal? And this is something we'll have to talk about personal in the end, when it has to do more with lawsuits, morale, mission, vision, the values, and the ethics of the company. So, of course, as we go back, so you have to protect people, your assets. Then you have to prevent your materials getting stolen. You need to reduce a lot of risks, and one of them would have to be, espionage, sabotage, as you can all read them. I mean, I don't want to keep listing what you can already read, but the main idea is that everything that is inside the manufacturing industry is important. And as well, everywhere that is important at your home, where you put your laptops and so on. So we have moved beyond the point where work is going to be always there. Some industries, yes, your work is always going to be in one place. But now with more technology, especially for the R&D departments, they're working everywhere. And especially with COVID hitting and opening the door for remote work, it added more challenges. So what is the most common threats that usually are happening in manufacturing environments is when you have people unauthorized entering. And this is a big problem legally as well speaking. Let's talk about food production. If somebody comes in inside the manufacturing or the belt line, they're unsanitized, they're not wearing good protection methods, and they get injured there. That's a big lawsuit. Even though you have to check, did I sign the waiver? Was there non-disclosure NDA agreements? So many procedures have to go. And usually a lot of problems happen because someone slipped in, or you're allowing somebody to come in, especially when you have visits, when you want to showcase what you're doing. And that's part of the marketing team as well. Theft, of course. You have small little items, we call them mobile equipment. Somebody can snatch them. Workplace violence, of course, you have to consider one of the big known things that are happening. So when, let's say, the Russian-Ukrainian war started, there were so many people working together, Russians and Ukrainians, and they worked on factories on either side of the borders. Before the war really escalated, there were already some problems occurring in those offices, in these factories, because of the political tensions that are happening. Same thing anywhere in Europe. You will have people with different political opinions, even personal problems. And that can result in workplace violence, which can cascade and make the situation worse. Of course, as well, you have some physical intrusions. This is when you have cybersecurity problems. And we will talk in the end about cybersecurity. And you might say, but cyber isn't related to physical security. Or everything is very connected in the end. In the end, security is security. Whatever you breach, you are going to be infiltrating the security of the entity, which it might be industry, manufacturer, whatever. And of course, environmental threats. I think recently there was a flooding in Montenegro, and it caused a big damage to a lot of industries and factories. So everything can happen, and power outages are something that is very often happening in certain countries that don't have stability in their electrical, let's say, infrastructure. Access control. So this is something as well important. Badges. I have a badge. Anita has a badge. Most of you who are as well attending this seminar have badges, and they're so easy to duplicate. I can install an application on my phone that can actually read the RFID tag of my badge. And now you have so many people.
I'm very sorry to interrupt you. There are people that cannot hear you. I will try to turn off your microphone and turn it back on again. We have a little technical issue. I'm sorry. Okay, we try again.
Hello,
Okay.
can anyone hear me? Everyone can hear me? Sound check.
I think it was two persons that addressed this problem. So maybe.
There are.
Okay, there are people that hear us. Okay.
If they cannot hear, maybe some headphones, they have some smart options that they try to switch the audio so they can check if it is the output that is actually in place.
Yes, maybe in the browser settings is some audio output settings that can be changed. I'm not sure what the problem is. I will investigate, and I let Omar continue his presentation.
Thank you. So, regarding access controls, what can really happen is there are applications, your NFIC, this is a system inside your phones that you use to pay for credit cards and so on. It can read badges. There are tools, for example, called a Flipper Zero. This is used for penetration testing when they do it physical. They call them red physical testings. They try to scan badges and replicate what signatures the badges are giving. And there are plenty of small tools that are actually very cheap on the market that you can buy for research purposes and reutilize them to copy badges. But badges are not the only thing that is a problem, because access points mean anything that you have an access that is a point of going from one zone to another. So as well, visitor, I don't know if any of you work in data centers, or even when you go from high, high risk zone, you usually have some procedures. Some people will do it. It's the most used one, which you write what time you came in, who are you, the role, and so on. This is good, but the problem with it, it still is under human error, which is sometimes you might forget, sometimes you might come in bundle. So of course you have cameras that are there, but as well the cameras can be affected, they can be manipulated, because as well they're network based and depends on the type of CCTV you have in place. Of course, everything is up to, there's not such thing as an unhackable environment. It's just when you're going to get hacked and how much inconvenient it is for somebody to hack you. So access points are going to always be your first point of interaction between anybody who's malicious or, an employee who didn't realize that they're doing something wrong. Because sometimes you have problems with policies not being clear. This is as well another point we will talk about. But to talk more about this slide. This slide's main purpose is to just highlight access points. Batch systems and biometric authentications are very important, and they can as well be bypassed. And as well visitor management protocols. And as well here we go, when I told you it's moving from one zone to another, it's the zoning. So me, for example, let's say I'm a person who works on the belt line. I have no purpose being in the R&D office. Yet some manufacturing industries, because they date back to 100 years, 80 years ago, they cannot tell this person no, because he's been there for 40 years, he knows about the company, because this is where the personal element in your 5 pillars of any risk assessment is going to play a role. You cannot tell people who come from older generations that they cannot. And this is the reality of life. We can talk about this beautiful theoretical world where, yes, we give policies, we do documentation, we check backups, we check the risks. But then there is still this little leniency that comes in, which is the psychological effect of how we live our daily lives. You know, you cannot ask certain people for certain procedure, risk, and so on. Of course, now there's more enforcement, and how you inform them of these decisions play a bigger role. However, it is the case, and we need to put it into our risk assessments when we're actually trying to see what can be good or not. Of course, as well, you have delivery, which is usually third-party members. So let's say you're a manufacturing company that works in cat food, and of course, you're not going to be getting your chicken or the cows or the fish. You have a delivery company or a company that gives it to you, and there's a delivery company that gets the food from point A to your point B, which is your factory. And this delivery, when it becomes mundane, like everyday operations, the security will go down because you're building a rapport with this person. And usually this is what some malicious people try to utilize into gaining access. And of course, here in the end, we say R&D labs and control rooms. These are important because in the end, if you control the oversight, you have full control. So, and they see what access points are available or not. That will bring us to the topic of surveillance and monitoring. So CCTV, very important. And where you place it is very important. I remember I did a mission in a country where they had over 90 cameras in a building. From those 90 cameras, you had 23 cameras only operating properly. The others were out of commission, old, they need maintenance, and there's just no regular checkups on them because the 15 they have, they're very well, and they're very happy with them. Then you check the 15 cameras, they had an indoor camera facing outside. So that does not work because when indoor cameras have a specific focal length, and as well they have a specific digital clarity or format. This cannot work on outdoors because outdoors you need cameras that are equipped with dual lenses, which means that you can see the overall, but then you can zoom in into the recording and you see on clear picture resolution what is the person wearing, what is the person dressed with, if they have any resembling marks, if they stole something. So placement is very important, and knowing the equipment that you're using. As well, covering blind spots. Video analytics, this is quite new because in the past, your video analytic was a human sitting behind the desk and bored out of their minds. And this is something very important. Boredom, morale are very important for people, how they perform their tasks. Now we can use logs. So you can have a CM system or so on, which is similar to centralized security. It's just you get a sensor that is able to detect certain movements, or some AI now that is able to analyze the movements of the camera. So how these new AI systems work is that you have a video, such for example, myself, and it is tracking. So it works on top of the video. It doesn't go on the pixelization. Of course, there are some systems that work on pixelizations, but that's not very accurate because they're trying to replicate the human. This is why they still call it AI, even though it's just a machine learning how to do certain things. Then we move to the centralized security. This is very important because the keyword is correlation. Everything we do in life is a correlation. So, for example, I am thirsty, but I'm not feeling dehydrated. That means maybe I'm craving something sweet. Our brain works with this correlation. I am thirsty and I feel my mouth is dry. My brain correlates these two together and says, oh, I need to drink water. So I'll drink my water. This is how these engines work. They take multiple logs or multiple events from different tools, and then they correlate them. A lot of you, I think, are aware of what a CM tool or what a security operations center is. A SOAR, I don't know if everybody knows what it is, but long story short, this is what they call an orchestrator. So this thing actually acts upon it. This is another risk. You have to check on the side if it's doing, false positives and it's working on the false positives or not. In general, it's good to have what is called a security operations center, which hosts the CM or the SOAR. We have put them in this for the slide because they all work on correlation. You need to take more than one event and understand what is happening. And you detect it in real time. So if I see somebody walking, my AI system, for example, on the video analytics will say, I see object A, unidentifiable human, for example, moving from the beginning of the screen to the end. Then after that, my timestamp, I see a door has opened. There were password inputs, 2 incorrect, then the third one worked. Then the system will say, oh, if this and this happened with this short time frame, I will raise an alarm for you as a security person to understand, oh, there's something weird here. So I will investigate. And sometimes the SOAR might say, oh, I see somebody put 2 incorrect passwords and they moved. I will lock the system completely. Do not let them walk in. So this is where you will consult with your security experts who will help you on, might be your IT administrator or the head of physical security. This is something still under debate how it's progressing in the future, because probably a CISO will have to do this job. And lastly, I do not know if anybody is aware of what is called a SIPTED and SIPTED concept. So this is a very new practice. I am one of the people who practice this, and I'm, promoting it. It's a Canadian, let's say, institution that started. So SIPTED stands for Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. And this is a very, very interesting type of, let's say, framework. So it works on the psychological factors of how things are placed to deter criminal activity. So for example, if you are walking and you thought to yourself, I want to enter this. Oh, actually, it's easier. A lot of you, if you have IKEAs, you walk in IKEA and you see a door. You're like, maybe I can enter. But then you see a big sign that says, caution, alarm will ring if you open the door. You don't touch, because like, oh, what if I push it and that alarm would sound on and I don't want to, face the consequences. Same thing. These are called deterrence techniques. So if you put, for example, on your house, just a sticker, even if you don't have anything, a sticker that says, this house, this glass is tamper-proof and will sound an alarm if touched, or beware, there are dogs, so on. Even if you don't have them, the criminal does not know you have them. The malicious user who has bad intention will not know you have it unless they do their reconnaissance. But in general, most crimes, petty crimes, they are called intuitive crimes. They are just the heat of the moment. Oh, I saw this opportunity, I tried to take it. These things deter. Night lights, if you go to a building or in the manufacturing industry and you see it's lit on at night, the criminal wouldn't think of entering, because he would say, there are people inside that might spot me, the police might come, and I as well will show up bright if I'm entering the access point. There are big lights and a camera that's on, that it can see my face clearly. So these techniques are very good. They deter criminal activity drastically. And this is a concept that have been even applied by municipalities, governments, even in neighborhoods, to deter and reduce the crime rate. So this is something as well to be taken into consideration if you're looking to, increase the security structure of your industry. So security protocols. Now here we're gonna go a bit from outside, a bit inside the manufacturing, let's say, facility or the factory. There's a very simple one. I think everybody is aware of it. It's not very new. It's very old. Actually, it's called the lockout tagout. I will not explain it because a lot of you know it. And as well, it's written what it does in clear, simple instructions. Everybody who works on certain things, if it's locked out and somebody has tagged out, if it's going through maintenance, that there's no wrong usage of this machine, because a lot of accidents used to happen because somebody would use a machine that is being maintained or serviced or does not operate properly, and they're not aware, they didn't communicate, because in the end communication is very important. Control panel protections, of course, anything that has humans that need to input certain settings or functionalities or human machine interfaces, they need to be locked. Of course, now a lot of new systems, they have the keys that can lock the control panel. Of course, they get through inspections and so on. But these are very important to be taken because manufacturing industry, as we discussed in the beginning, is a very big domain. I cannot cover everything. So if it doesn't cover, then you need to find ways that you can actually put a system that protects it. Maximum, you can just put a whole plastic or glass protection over the panel and you seal it in and then you make it key operated. There's always very cost efficient ways to secure certain systems. It only takes time. Time is very precious on these matters. And of course, protecting robotic and automated systems. This is very, present in car manufacturing industries. So you have certain industries, for example, still like Lamborghini. Lamborghini, they have big arms, as they have those ones that manufacture and put the car in place, but they still have a lot of people who work by hand on every single noose on the motor itself, and this is why it's more expensive. But these this co-work, this hybrid work between the computers and the humans, you need to find a safety mechanism of how they can work together, because if somebody does a mistake, it's going to be bloody. And when we say bloody, it is bloody. It means somebody is going to get drastically hurt. So if you go, let's say, to manufacturing countries, India, China, they have a very well-structured systems for security. And you have a lot of people that do dangerous works because of, let's say, the pay, because it's different systems. But as well, it's a manufacturing industry. Would you go to let's take the simple example. You want to do a hair transplant. Do you go to an expensive Belgian doctor who does five patients the whole month or the whole year? Or you go to Turkey where they do, 1,000 scalps per day or something like that? Well, that's an unrealistic number. But that's the point. Who practices something more, they have more experience of how to handle risks and problems. Same thing happens with manufacturing industries. So protecting sensitive areas and assets. This is very important, especially with what type of materials you're handling. So let's talk about this way. You're a company that harvests uranium. We're in Europe, we have a lot of nuclear power plants. We do need uranium to operate certain things. There are factories that do that, and they have a lot of security protocols. Of course, you need to protect these. And this is later on, and under NIS2, you see there are plenty of certain protection mechanisms, and there are other, what we call them, standards and policies specifically for these industries. You can even, where is a place you can manufacture a bomb? Every single factory that makes food, because they have access to all the chemicals that you can use to build bombs. So this is very tricky subject. So you do need to protect these kind of elements, chemicals that you have in your industry. Same thing, intellectual property. There's this big debate why most Western countries hate China, because China usually steals blueprints of big industries in the West and they build copies of them. So that's why if you really look at it, and you see now the Chinese car industry, now they're entering Europe because they made an agreement with each other that I will allow you, but you need to increase the prices so they don't have the competitive edge. But you see the designs are quite similar. Like you can almost say, hey, that looks like a Tesla, even though it's not. That looks like a Ford. That looks like a BMW. It's just because they already got the blueprints, because they stole them and then they're manufacturing their own systems. So intellectual property is super important. All these little things are important. Formulas. Server rooms, of course, I always say that. If you spend 1 million euros on your servers, on your databases, all the, those fancy things, equipment, I put Microsoft Defender, I'm putting a lot of money, I'm so happy about it. Then this person just enters, takes your server, puts it on and back and leaves. All this money is useless because your physical security is very important where you're storing this expensive software that you're buying. So you need to secure your server rooms, or even if you have a data center outside, or some companies, they have their data centers because they're very big, they have them inside their premises. So you need to know how to protect them. Of course, control rooms, this goes back all the way to the access point and the monitoring. So if you're not able to secure those systems, they have complete access of your whole systems. They can shut off cameras, they can shut off access points, sensors, what else, recordings, pressurized systems, what else? Many things, because a lot of manufacturing industries as well rely on automated machines to keep certain temperatures regulated, pressures regulated, and so on and so on. And in the end, documentation. Well, now we have two things. You're gonna think, oh, you're talking about documents, so you're talking about something physical. No, even software, so electronic documents are very precious. A hard disk, in the end, is containing everything. There's no such thing as a cloud where a file is just flying around and you have to get it. That doesn't work. Everything is stored physically somewhere. And for me, for example, it's easier if I know you're storing most of your documents at your home than if you're storing them at a data center and so on. And even the data centers have tiers. So depending on the tier, you will see some criminals will say it's easier for me to go to a tier 1 or a tier 2 data center than go to a tier 4 data center. So these are things more and more important for you to understand and conduct your risk analysis on. Insider threat. Now this is very important. I'll give like 30 seconds. I think you can be skimming through what is written. But insider threats are so much. They happen a lot. But here's the thing. Reporting is something completely different than reality. Because I can report an insider threat, and it might be just a person that misused a document. And maybe I just don't like them. Or I want to make myself very prone. Or I want to manipulate the statistics to get what I want. I usually do not like statistics, and I do not like when it's being reported because it's not the real facts. So let's say if it's a government entity conducting a proper audit and give you statistics, then you understand this is unbiased. But whenever it's somebody telling you certain things that related to human activity, you always take it with a pinch of salt. So yeah, it is true, but don't always eat through it all the way. So yes, you have 83% of organizations reporting that they had an insider threat. What kind of attack was it? We don't know. Because as well, 83 is taken on which region. That's why you need to always know your industry, your category, and your domain, what is relevant to it. So if you're a confectionery, you deal with chocolates and so on. You don't check with a car industry and see what they're having. You need to check with relevant industries. If you are, I don't know, one of the big three, which are Ferrero, Mars, Nestle, and so on. I think even Nestle is owned by another one. All of these is where you compare the security threats. You don't go to an aeronautics engineering factory and then you compare what threats that they're having. Because different politics, different policies, and different problems. Different type of people as well attending these kind of factories. Then you have mishandling. And this is the real problem. It's the mishandling of data, the mishandling or losing data. Anita shares a very important document with me. I download it on my laptop, even though it's on our shared cloud. Why did I download it? Because there's no clear policies, there's no nothing. It's just everybody is operating on high trust. So yes, this is nice, but when it's sensitive documents, you shouldn't work with nice. And I know Anita and I know Omar, and they're very nice and they take security seriously. Because even the most veteran and decorated soldier will always do simple mistakes, because you cannot be always on a highly elevated state of security, because then your cortisol will spike up and you'll be completely drained and you will not be operating. There's something called the cortisol saturation, which saturated cortisol levels, which is when you're completely cooked. You're always stressed, hypochondriac, and you're not operating correctly, which will not result in you doing anything productive. And then there is the unrealistic expectation. So all companies believe that we have the best staff in the world, and I have all my security measures correctly, all my cameras work. But then down to reality, that does not work. Because a lot of things happen because somebody handled something incorrectly, or somebody didn't want you to have proper procedures and they're just modifying certain files. How many of you check your documentations if it has been tampered? Because some of you will say, oh, I look at the last modified. That doesn't mean anything, because that can as well be tampered. It's all metadata. So there are so many things to take into consideration. I don't want to scare everybody into this mentality of, oh, I cannot trust anybody. No, you need to trust. This is how the world works. You need to trust, but you need to put proper, clear policies, playbooks, procedures to remove the gray lines, because this is how everything operates. It's like a politician. They'll always tell you things that are on the gray zone. So it's up to your interpretation. So one of the things to really prevent them is to do background checks. Some of you will say, but we have GDPR. Some countries don't, but we have GDPR in Europe, and it's very tricky and a sensitive topic. True, but there are things that are not sensitive topic. If you have somebody handling very risky and dangerous things, you can conduct certain checks. You have the right. Why is it that you have something called a NATO clearance check? You cannot get a job in certain positions in the EU Commission or so on unless you have a NATO clearance. Yeah, if they are able to ask for that, and you'll say, but they're very high-end companies and so on. You dictate everything on your company, on your factory. So you do not have to ask them to give you the whole list of where they travel, but you can check, you can ask for a criminal record. If you know for a fact, for example, you're handling combustion materials, if you work in a motor, producing engines for Airbus, of course you're gonna need a criminal record. I don't expect anybody come in who has a degree, so-called, and they can just work on it. You need to check what they have done. That's where it's the due diligence or background checks are important. Plus, open source intelligence. It's called open source for a reason. It means it's public data. So you can have a team that can check your your data, open source, that everything you posted. If you have an Instagram account, how much do you talk or blather? Maybe I'm giving you very important detailed plans about an engine, and you're just boasting, oh, I got the new Boeing 777 engine blueprints. Look how amazing I am. I am honored. I have a lot of people putting that on LinkedIn. Criminal would look at it and be like, oh, this is a person that we will need to conduct some search on. So as well, how much we boast and talk can reflect on us security-wise and the company's security. In the end, we create the security for a company, and it's not the company that should make us more secure. Unfortunately, that is still the case sometimes, because you have a lot of people who, they say, I've never been in a problem, so I don't think I'm going to be in a problem. So second thing as well is monitoring behavior. This is very important. We work in patterns. Humans are pattern and sequence creatures. We do everything. I can bet 80% of you take the same road to go every time from your house to the work. It usually is not the case that much when you have a lot of traffic jams. So people from Luxembourg who live in France and work in Luxembourg will tell you, yeah, I always try to find a way out. But in the end, no matter how many alterations, there's going to be always a pattern. You can say if it's this much traffic jam. We have patterns. We follow patterns. This person, then they wake up, they always have their coffee before they even sit on the desk. We have this. This is how we are. So if you see a change in behavior, and we all notice these things because that's how we operate. This is when you feel something wrong in your gut and you say, oh, maybe today Anita's not feeling very well. Like she didn't do what I'm usually used to her. So maybe there's something off. This can be something for you to just keep in mind. Or if she works in a very serious place, very important documents, handles a lot of things that are important, check up on them. We are all humans. We work together. Maybe she was blackmailed. Maybe she was threatened. So these are things that are very important, especially how many important documents you handle in your position. And of course, in the end, it's privilege management. This is a security mechanism, by the way, to protect the user. So a lot of companies or marketing teams try to sell it for high leaderships to tell them, oh, we secure you, but really you're securing the person. Because for example, if I'm just a cybersecurity expert, I'm not handling sensitive information for, let's say, Luxembourg House of Cybersecurity or NC3. However, if I do not have certain privileges, I can access any files from my managers, from the ministry, or whatever. How am I protected? Because anybody can steal my account, do this activity, or I can by mistake delete a file. So it's just, you need to reframe certain images. So, there's two words. You have always a positive and negative annotation to the same concept. So reframing and manipulation, they're the same concept, but they're just, one is negative, one is positive. So when you want to get somebody to do something, you either are manipulating them and you're doing something malicious because it's serving your goal, or you reframe it, which is, you say it's, doing their goal, it's suiting their goal. But in the end, they're both manipulating or reframing somebody's concept of a certain procedure, policy, order, request. So always find positives, reframe it. I am giving you a less privilege because I don't want you to be in a place that is not needed for you to be. Like, why put this person in a position where they actually are in a problem and they have to give an excuse to why they didn't do something wrong if they handled it by mistake? So yeah, you get what you need. This is your purpose. This is what you do. And the staff will feel more relieved. It's like, oh, okay, it's not that because you do not trust me, it's because you want to lower the risks that I might have for myself and for the company. Because in the end, the employees are the ones that make the company profit more. It's not going to be the CEO holding everything. Your marketing team has their job. The people on the belt, they have their job. The R&D team has their job. So really, decide everybody where they need to do, what is their tasks, what accesses they should have, and that's it. Need to know basis. And then you do the policies and procedures to be very clear about that. I'm gonna go a bit fast because I want to give more time, because I'm interested as well in hearing your questions, and hopefully I can help as much as possible. Emergency preparedness and response. So now there are plenty of companies going on and trying to promote being prepared for certain situations. So yeah, security is a big thing when we talk about anything, because it can be natural disasters or people harming you, or you doing a mistake and slipping, by chance, as we call it. So of course, you need to be prepared. I think 100% of companies, because these are regulations that are imposed on them, you need to have your fire system alarms, sprinklers, exhausters, alarms, sensors. The list goes on and on. Safety procedures. Do you have anybody who does first aid in each segment? This is very important. In Luxembourg, it's being pushed a lot that everybody knows how to do certain first aid, and it's per floor. So it's, you can do critical assistance as soon as possible. As well, evacuation. So that's why we do safety drills, the alarm rings, everybody goes. Of course, we do not treat it properly. Everybody would be working, and then the fire alarm rings, and they're like, I was working, and so on. Then everybody's walking slowly. However, these are important because you are getting used to it. And as well, it depends on the person. Response training is very important because it's about intrusion, break-ins, security breaches, kidnapping, and so on. So this is immediately something happened, you see how much people can quickly react. And this is not just security, this is even cyber. You have an attack, you need to know how to respond to it. But since we're focusing on physical security, we're going to talk about intrusions. You have somebody coming in. How many of you or your receptionists in your industries, you are 100% sure they will know what to do if somebody comes in and starts shouting at them and demanding to go in, and then another person just starts going in? Do you have the security tool? Are they trained? Oh yeah, they're trained. Have they ever done it? Did you do simulated? Did you see what they will do? How many people can they accommodate? So these kind of things need to be taken into consideration. And the break-in, if somebody came in and broke and stole a server, do you know the procedures, or will you have to start thinking on them on the spot? Do you have a playbook? Is it accessible? Do people memorize it? These are very important to have in mind and to keep them being tested. And then in the end, you have the continuity plans. These are very essential. So here we have, I wrote BCP and DRP, so business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan or policy. Here's something very important. The only big key difference between these two is we say BCP is the general continuity plan for the business, and DRP is for IT-related issues. But it's as well OT. And in manufacturing industries, you have plenty of OT. If you have a belt, a big arm that operates certain, treated chemicals on the toilet seats, for example, and it's unoperating. It has a malfunction, and it's just spraying the spray everywhere in the air. Okay. Do you have a disaster recovery plan for this? Because this is IT, OT related. This isn't somebody coming and hitting you or the whole business crumbling. It's just one belt line. So you need to focus on these kind of errors as well and what can be done. You're gonna say, but if we're gonna think for every single problem that will happen, the list will never end. Well, you need to start somewhere. Yes, this is called, let's say, avoiding what is needed in the end. When you have people come and do a risk assessment, they go from A to Z. Everything needs to be assessed. And these are people who do their job properly. Of course, you're going to have people who tell you, oh, you have this, and that's it. Yeah, you cannot just go for critical risks. You need to mitigate all or understand all kinds of risks you have, from the simplest ones to the highest ones. And then it depends on your, what they call, risk appetite to decide which ones you want to treat or not. Of course, here as well, we're going to talk about integrating physical and cybersecurity. So these are very important because everything is interconnected. All your systems, they have an internal network, the belt chain and everything. That is IT. This is cyber. This isn't really physical. But you know how everything can be related and how they really helps you out. Because in the end, if I have a USB key and I plug it into your system, because all those systems need to have a point of contact because they're all operating on digital instructions. The moment I can modify this, the moment I can tap into your internal network, tap into your OT network, tap into the source code of your systems, I'm able to do whatever I want. And you will have what is called a corporate espionage. You'll have people coming from competitive companies against you, telling you, oh, I used to work there, but I don't like them anymore. And I want to, I'm expert in this. And you hire them because you're like, oh, good, they give us an edge because they understand how the other person operated. And then you start seeing them playing good, everything good. And then they tell you, oh, they offered me a higher salary again in my old company, and I'm going to return to them. You wouldn't think twice. Some of you might, but some of you might say, okay, you leave, and then you have a lot of issues starting to happen in the company. Because people who do that are not idiots. They know what they're doing. They know how to hide their tracks. So if you do your due diligence, your background checks, understand how things work, and always have a system to protect yourself, you're always on the good side because you're able to as well coordinate. Because your IT team is going to tell your physical team, hey, there is something wrong with the logs that I'm receiving from this arm. Can you please check it? And then your physical security team or your physical team needs to say yes. And all this squabbling between, oh, but I am physical security, I don't care about the IT, and I'm IT, I don't care about physical security. This needs to be squashed completely. The moment these two teams are able to understand that they're both part of the security team and you don't split them, you will see wonders happening in the security posture of the company because they believe they're together, they're a team. There's no more competition on little things. These things build a good sense of let's say, partnership, teamwork, brotherhood, sisterhood, and it promotes them learning from each other because a proper security, or in my opinion, a CISO or CISO should know physical security concepts and IT concepts because you cannot be a security expert unless you understand both things, how they work and how they operate. And in the end, I think this is the last slide, hopefully, is to create a very safe environment for your people. Because in the end, we're all a group of people. This is why psychological security is so essential and important. Because the people need to understand that we are working together. Because all those malicious things happening, they attack humans. You say, okay, they're attacking the belts and so on. But who is operating this whole machine? It is a human. A human is making the profit. You, the CEOs, the CFOs, the stakeholders, they are making money. There are humans behind a certain product that is being manufactured. And me being a malicious person, I would either want to harm these people so I can get that money for myself, or I'm going to try to steal from these people's minds what they have created to benefit myself financially. And hacktivists, let's say, if you're creating something very bad, the green hacktivists and so on, they will try to hurt you because they believe you are destroying the world. So it's always good to understand the threats that you might get. This is, for example, in the maritime sector. I worked in the maritime sector, and I told my manager, I told him, we need to check all the people that might want to harm us, not just competition and money, but we need to think about environmental reasons. We need to think about disgruntled employees. We need to think about everything. Because when you work in an industry, maritime industry, it has a lot of problem because they consider it, they are polluting the world the most. But depends on the type of vessels and so on. So you need to understand you might get attacked by these kind of organizations, the people. Are you that high profile that you're actually to be spotting on the, popping up on the radar of these hacktivists? So this is very important. So when you're protecting your people from these kind of threats, the people will feel safe. They will feel that they belong. It's like a child. A child will love their parents more if they feel that the parents are taking care of them. They care about their, growth, their future, their competences, their skills. And you will always have an employee that's going to be angry and hating you because you're not taking care of them. You're not prioritizing them as a human. They'll think that you're just taking advantage of me. And unfortunately, a lot of companies do that because they are, financially motivated. And this is where the personalities of their leadership would really matter. If you have good leaders or you have bosses, so they don't care about, mingling, they just want to care about the money. So in the end, the people element is so important. And this is why this whole slide is about creating a secure workforce. So you just keep them trained, you keep informing them of what happens, and you tell them this security trainings that we're doing is for you to do at home. I don't care that you have to finish these, but I care if you don't learn how to protect yourself here and at home, you might get hurt. See, reframing. I'm not manipulating you because I have a compliance check on NIS2 and I need to make sure everything is clicked. No, just reframe it. I need them to be safe. They're safe at home. I know they're then more secure aware than my company is better. Of course, doing everything clear protocols. Everybody knows what they're getting. When you have people don't know what's happening in the future, what they're going to do, they will never know what to expect. So they're going to be in a limbo. So they might start seeking of other people, other companies, or they'll just perform their job incorrectly, or they'll mishandle data and so on because there's no clear instructions. Team building. So here I said, encourage culture of accountability and vigilance. This is very important, but this will never work if you don't have a safe zone for mistakes. And when you have team building activities, people will feel more connected. They will feel more safe to share their problems, and they know that they're in a safe zone. Because in the end, we all humans will connect. We're social beings, sorry. So if you feel safe in your zone, that if I made a mistake, I will not get fired, I will not get yelled on, they will help me solve this problem together. It encourages that if I am bad, I can show accountability, I can show vigilance, and then we can solve the problem. And your supervisors need to do the same thing. Because if your supervisor is always avoiding risks and tells you like, no, you did bad, you're going to get fired because I want to protect myself, then this is a horrible leadership. You should throw this, because this is not a leader. This is a person that's going to do anything in their power to just protect themselves. We're social beings. We are working in a social environment, in a dangerous environment, which is the manufacturing industry. Depends where you are. It is still a dangerous environment. If you're working in the sea, the North Sea, on those big oil rigs, that is very dangerous as well. So everybody needs to feel safe in a way to achieve good and proper, work sensation, workforce, and everybody can act like a family where they take care of each other and they take care of the organization itself. And thank you very much for your time. I hope I didn't bore anybody. It's a Friday, so everybody's kind of tired. And I would be ready. I'll try my best to answer everybody's questions.
Thank you very much, Omar. I see there is no question, probably because your presentation was very clear and very interesting. Yes, so as we said in the chat already, the presentation and the replay will be shared right after this webinar. And yeah, I share with you our event page. If you scan this QR code, you will land on our event page, and there you can follow up with all our webinars. And the next webinar will take place on December 5th. D-IH Talks episode 17 is on blockchain technology for industry. And yes, thank you very much for your participation. There is an information tab also to add our speakers on LinkedIn. So if you have questions later on, you can go ahead and add them, and they are happy to answer all your questions. And yes, thank you very much to our speakers. Thank you very much, Anita and Omar. And I wish everyone a wonderful weekend. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.